sharing with you in this video how to stop waiting and start creating instead. And so what this video is going to do is help you to be in a position where no longer are you sort of hoping that everything works out and that this perfect moment happens where finally the stars align and everything is perfect, and then you finally get to that place of just comfortability and everything is good. And then it's like, really, I believe that if we have just a little bit more self-awareness, what we'll find is that all of that is connected with the state of being a victim. And so what we're trying to do in this video is not stay stuck in that state of victimhood, and then instead step into our true power, which this power that I'm talking about in this video is not about controlling the external world or even necessarily your thoughts or your emotions or even anything in your internal world. It's about controlling and mastering what I believe to be the most powerful thing, which is your attention. I believe that if we can master our attention, we can master our life, because what we're doing is we're focusing on the fundamentals of what comes prior to anything that's actually happening, or your thoughts or your emotions or the external world. It's coming to terms with what you really truly can actually control in your life, which is, again, your attention. That's what you can actually control. That's what you can actually take responsibility for. And so the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to stop waiting and start creating is to replace waiting with action, with instant action. So if you ever find yourself in a state of just sort of waiting for that next moment, and then waiting that, again, maybe something perfect is going to happen again, what you want to do is just immediately do something to sort of go against it. That's a powerful technique that you can do, because you have to start to notice when you're doing this. What you'll find is that there's so many moments where we're just literally doing nothing. We're waiting, and not that doing nothing is wrong. There's nothing wrong with doing nothing, but I'm talking about nothing that feels boring, because there's sort of like a stagnation behind how you're doing what you're doing. See, it's not just about the actions that we're taking, it's also about the place that we're coming from. And so when I'm talking about waiting, I'm talking about this sort of sluggish, heavy state of just repeating the same identity over and over, never transforming yourself to be something different. And then you find that after maybe multiple years, it could be you or a person, not necessarily saying it's you, but after many years, there's just a continual transformation and turning into of the same person. Never a change, never something different, never something more exciting. And so really what we want to start to do is notice when we're getting stuck in those spaces of just repetition, redundance, like too much things repeating themselves, right? This is something we can actually avoid by having just a little bit more self-awareness, and then replacing that stagnation with an action that feels more exciting to you, that feels more aligned to you, that makes you feel more aligned with your mission, your purpose, and your vision, and whatever it is that you want to create, that you see in your future. Every single action that you take in the present should be aligned with the person that you want to be in the future, so that hopefully one day, of course, that future vision can become your present, can become who you are, by focusing on doing it now in the present moment, of course, as if it was already the case. But this is a technique that you can apply in your life today, is when you catch yourself in maybe some hypnotic state where you're lost in your thoughts, you're lost in your emotions, you're lost in some, story in your mind or some life situation about you, whatever the case is, why you can't do what you want to do. And if you find yourself just being in a state of inaction, where it feels like you're not being who you're meant to be or who you want to be in that moment, replace it with just doing something that does feel aligned with what you want to do. And then do that over and over and over until, of course, you build more self-trust. You build more awareness. You build more connection to that source within you, to that truth of who you really are. And so the second thing that I want to share with you in this video, in terms of how to stop waiting and start creating instead, is really to start to notice that waiting is really a state of stagnation. Like, you can actually notice this. Like, just become aware that every single time you're waiting, you're stagnated. Nothing is changing. Nothing is moving forward. You're repeating yourself. You're doing the same thing over and over. And then so that, when you start to see that, when you start to see like, okay, like waiting actually is a stagnated state, which is also connected to inaction. So what you'll find is that many people that are in a state of, chronic inaction, they can't take action. They can't move the energy forward. They can't just forgive the past. They can't let go of the past. They're stuck on the past. You'll find these people complaining about something that happened to them 20 years ago, and they're still there. They're still living in the past. It's like this. You want to avoid this at all costs, because what you're doing in that space is you are, again, playing a victim character. And whether we want to admit it or not, that is a choice. It is a choice to play the role of a victim. And of course, the victim will never admit this. The victim will never admit that it's a choice. But then once we can step out of it and then ground back into the truth of who we are, back to the source, of course, from that state, you're like, oh yeah, of course, I was being a victim and it was a choice that I was making in that moment, not realizing that I was. And part of avoiding this whole circus, the circus of the ego, the circus of the mind, that attachment to the mind, the circus of really the result of attachment to the mind is starting to see, that waiting is a stagnated state. Instead of waiting, you could think a different thought. Think a different thought that's more exciting to you. Take a different action that feels better to you. And do something a little bit different that you've never done before. But of course, while you're doing it, again, do it from a space of valuing your attention first and being connected to that source and that truth. And if you can pair that together, what you'll find is that ultimately, it's not something you have to try to do. It's that when you prioritize your connection to your divine intelligence, it just becomes much easier naturally to make better decisions that make you feel better and that are more aligned with your heart. Because only when we identify with our thoughts and identify with our emotions and identify with negative life situations, only from that space is it very difficult to prioritize your divine intelligence, because you're so attached to all the negative things and you don't even want anything to do with divine intelligence. You don't want anything to do with not being a victim. You just want more pain. Pain feeds off of pain. So again, when we can start to have somebody tell us, just say, hey, prioritizing your divine intelligence will help you to get out of pain, or better yet, maybe still have pain, but come to terms with it and not resist it so that eventually it can go away. Because remember, what you resist persists. That's going to be much better than just attaching to a victim mind state and then have nobody tell you the truth of what the case is in that moment. And so we need teachers, we need guides, we need people to tell us this, but also the greatest guide is ultimately your own divine intelligence. There's nothing greater than your divine intelligence. Your own intelligence will help you to make decisions that are not gonna make you stay stagnated in your life, not make you feel like you're repeating the same thing over and over and then doing the same thing again and again and again. That's something that we want to avoid at all costs, because again, that's going to be victim over and over and over and over. More victim mind state, more negativity, all the things you don't want, because of a choice to not prioritize what we really care about, which is being connected to our source. And ultimately, if we can have awareness, I believe that we all want that guidance from our own intelligence, whether we see it or not. And then so the final thing that I want to share with you in this video is to start to see that really no one is going to come save you. No one is going to come save you. Ultimately, only you can save yourself. That's ultimately the truth of the matter here. Because if we start to believe that something perfect is going to come save us, or the perfect thing is going to happen and then we can be happy, it's like all of this is just, again, playing into the victim. It's playing into the belief that like something is going to come save you other than your own self. Like, why would something come save you? Why would you ever want this to be the case? I think that a much more empowering perspective is to start to see that it's like, yeah, of course you're going to have problems. Yeah, of course you might lose yourself in some situations. Yeah, of course you might find yourself, doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. But at the end of the day, it's like, you have to take that responsibility, take that ownership to be like, you know what? I don't want somebody to come save me. I don't want something out there to fix all my problems. It's like you want to fix your problems from that space of caring about how you feel. So it's like, think about this. If you're taking action in your life, why would you ever want to not prioritize how you're doing what you're doing? Because if you're doing it only from a space of believing that somebody's going to come save you, but not from valuing a state of being empowered in of itself, what you're doing is you're caring more about the result than your own state of being. And if you care about the result more than your own state of being, what you've done is you've given away all your power, all your life force, all your energy, all your attention to the external world, and you believe that that's all you should be doing. But it's like, really, I believe that we can pull our energy back into ourselves and start to see that it doesn't have to be where we give away all our power and then we believe that that's what's going to lead to happiness. Because every single time you make a choice to give away your power to the external world, to give away a little bit of your life force and not care about who you are in this present moment, now you're less independent. You're more dependent literally on the external, because you don't have that inner independence to bring your energy back into yourself. And of course, independence almost is a facade, because we're interconnected with everything and nobody's really independent. We're all connected, we're all together in some type of way. But I'm talking about a spiritual independence that you can feel when your energy is not hypnotized by the external world. And again, when you start to realize that nobody's going to come save you, there's not going to be some crazy moment, you're going to have to take the action, you're going to have to master your attention if you want to feel better, you're going to have to master also the way that you show up in your life and the things that you care about and what you do. That is what starts to make it so that you're not waiting anymore. Again, waiting is hoping for the best, hoping that something happens or someone's going to come save you. That's what all waiting is. Waiting is a choice to give away your life force to the external world, believing that that's the solution to your problem and just waiting it out. But if we can start to see that, okay, like waiting is not always going to solve it, we can bring our energy back within ourselves. Now we can start to be the person that we actually want to be, rather than the person that maybe you believe society projects you to be, or maybe the conditioning that you got from your family. Not to say that these are wrong ideas, but eventually you have to take everything that you learn and then become your own person. And that is what it means to be an empowered individual that can actually not wait for the perfect moment to happen, but create from a space of being connected to the truth of who you actually are at the deepest and the most spiritual level, which again is going to make you feel like you have more free will and choice to be the person that you actually want to be.